So here we are at the hangar with the new Super Cub, and as you can see, I've already put one of the 31-inch bush wheels on, and I'd already done that one by the time I thought that, hey, I should make a video about this. So there you can see the difference in size between the tyres it had on and the 31-inch bush wheel, both of which go on a 6x6 Cleveland wheel. So let's get stuck into it. So the first part of the exercise is to remove the old hubcaps. Not really the old hubcaps, same hubcaps we're going to put back on. I'm fairly lucky that this aircraft's actually been equipped with skis previously, so we've got a hard point under here that I can use to jack it off, so I can jack one wheel at a time. On the previous Cub, I built a bracket that went around here, and then I could put the jack in the centre of the aircraft, and I jacked both main wheels at a time. You do find once you put the big tyres on, that the clearance between the jack and the tyre is quite close, which actually means you've got to then lift it even higher to get the jack back out of the way. That'll do for that one. We will have to go higher once we put the big tyres on. However, for now, we'll leave it at this height. Remove the split pin, throw that away, and we'll get a pair of pliers to get the nut. Okay. Next thing we've got to do is remove the lock wire from the brakes. 4 bolts there that hold the brake caliper together, and release one side of it so that we can allow the brake disc to come out with the wheel. There we go. Now, people are going to comment that I haven't put any jack stands under the aircraft, but I'm not too stressed. If this jack collapsed, we'd still keep the axle off the ground and the wingtip would be clear of landing on top of anything. So let's go and disassemble this wheel and we'll refit it to the new big tyres. So we've already deflated the tyre, but just to be sure so that it doesn't explode the 2 wheel pieces apart, when we undo the tyre bolts, we're going to pull the valve out. And you can hear there's still a little bit of pressure in there. It's loose. There we go. Can you hear that last bit of pressure come out? Okay, so we'll keep that handy for when we want to put it back together. Okay, so these are a 2-part wheel with 6 tyre bolts. They're a 7/16 socket will go on there, and we'll loosen those off, and the 2 parts of the wheel and brake disc will split apart like this. The last one I did was quite tight in there. The wheel had stuck to the rubber fairly solidly, so it took a little bit of a tap with a rubber mallet, but it eventually came apart. Okay. Okay, so after a bit of belting away with some plastic scrapers and a rubber mallet, and realising that I'd chopped my own head off, some would say that's not a detriment, I've managed to free the first half of the wheel, which comes out like so, and you can see it's actually only holding on to half an inch of rubber or so, but when it's been in there for a while, it tends to stick fairly solidly. So So we'll get rid of that one, and now we'll do the same levering and belting to get the other side of the wheel out. Ta-da! So you can see these tyres here are a tube type tyre, which is contrary to the bush wheels that we're about to put on. Let's have a look at that. You'll notice by my hammering that I'm left-handed. Only 11% of the population are left-handed, which makes the other 89% of the population weirdos. So these tyres are tubeless, but they're essentially their own tube. They're like a donut in there, so I'm not sure if you can see in there. So there's kind of a bladder in there, and it means that they don't need a tube, and they can also spin on the rim without snapping a valve stem, because the filling valve is out here. So it doesn't matter how much they spin on a rim. If you lock a tyre, something like that, you're not going to send them flat like you would with a conventional tyre. Okay, so the instructions say that we're to put talcum powder or soapy water on the inside there, all around the bead, and that just makes it slipperier for the two halves of the wheel to go together. So I'm just going to have a look over those wheels, make sure they're all in good condition, and then we'll start putting it back together. While we are looking over the wheel, we're going to remove the bearing from one side. So then once we put the two halves together inside the wheel, or inside the tyre, sorry, then we can put a torch in there and look to see that the inner tube we just talked about, or that inner bladder, isn't being pinched by the two halves going together. And so taking the bearing out, even though it's only just been serviced, you can see all the fresh grease. That allows us to be able to see inside with a bit more ease. Okay, they look good. Make the bead, the inner bladder nice and soapy. Help the wheels slip in a bit easier. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll loosely fit the first half. We'll put it around the right way. The valve stem's on the outside and we can fill it up easy enough. Okay, checking that it's not pinching anything on the way in. If it's not, that's good. Okay, now what I've found it's easier to do is put a drift the right size through that wheel half, and that'll allow us to line up this side a little bit easier, because it's quite tight in there. So if we get the two in and the bolt holes are not aligned, then it'll take us a bit to get them lined up again, and we'll probably end up having to pull them out and do this anyway. Okay. There we go. And even though we haven't got the wheel halves together, we're still going to have a look, make sure that they're not starting to pinch anything. All looks good, so we can start putting some bolts in. Don't forget to put the brake disc on whilst you're doing it. Okay, so now we've got the tyre bolts barely done up. We're still going to have a look inside through where we've taken the bearing out to make sure that the two halves have gone together without pinching anything, which it appears they have. So we can start tightening down the bolts and then torque them up. Okay, time to put the bearing back in, and then we'll fill it up with air. One other thing we're going to put in is this little plug, because we dropped it. Because our filler is now in the sidewall of the tyre, we don't need to utilise the valve stem hole in the wheel, so this little rubber plug just fills that up so that we don't get dirt or anything inside there, although in my case I've got hubcaps anyway that'll double cover it. Okay, time for some air. I've never been much of a sporting person, but these do bounce really good. Okay, so here's where we're going to have to jack the aircraft a bit higher, because remember how much clearance we had on the smaller tyre? Still about 1.5 inches below fitting the big one on. Those wing tips again. Good. Okay. Still not quite there. There we go. We'll rock wire it up. I think I'll drop it back down again. Everything clear under the wings. Ta-da! And that's it. Swap over from the small 8x5s to the 31-inch bush wheels. I'll lock wire them up now. I'm not going to film that. That's pretty boring. And we'll take a picture of it outside. Thanks for watching.